Hi guys! So I was recently going through my Goodreads and looking at all of the series that I have started and have not completed. And I found quite a few that I either stopped because I don't plan to continue the series, or stopped because I forgot about them, or stopped because other books came up and I still want to complete them. So I thought I would make a little video series of all of the book series that I have started and either don't plan to finish, do plan to finish, or book series that I want to start. So the first one I'm going to do is the book series that I am DNFing. It's probably going to be the most controversial one, but I definitely have a reason for all of these. A lot of them I'm really mad about, and then others I'm just like, meh, don't really care to continue them. So I will go through a couple of those series here. The first series that I don't plan to continue is the Shadowhunter Chronicles by Cassandra Clare. I mentioned in my No Disclaimers book tag video that I have read the first 6 books of the Mortal Instrument series, and the first 3 were okay, and the next 3 I absolutely despised. And I read them years ago, so I don't really have any desire to pick them up and continue. I know it's supposed to get better later on with the Infernal Devices series and everything, but I am not willing to put myself through the pain of all of the earlier series in order to get to the good ones. I have no interest in it, despite how many hyped and rave reviews it gets. The next series is probably not too surprising, but it's the Divergent series by Veronica Roth. I read the first book again years ago and I hated it. I thought that the writing was really bad and the plot was really stupid and the main character was also really stupid, so I never had any intention of completing that series, and I know that everyone hated the 3rd book anyway, and so I'm just definitely not going to pick that up ever again. The fact that the whole movie adaptation completely fell out is a very good indicator of how the books are, I think. Another series that has a screen adaptation that I am not going to continue is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon? I don't know how to say her name. Gabaldon? This is an adult historical fiction romance novel that had so much potential. I loved the idea of this woman who ends up falling back in time to a civil war period in Scotland. I thought that the way that the land around them was described was so good. It felt old and Scottish and you're in the Highlands, and it was amazing. I loved that part. The part that I didn't love is the romance. The romance bothered me so much, and the fact that these characters just put up with really stupid abuse and their whole interaction. I hated the characters the most. I loved the plot and the world, if you could call it that in historical fiction. I thought that was really interesting and it had so much potential, and I was so mad when the whole love story and the characters just completely ripped it apart for me. That might just be because I don't really care for romance in books or romance books. I haven't tried that many, honestly, but the few that I have read, I'm not for me. So I'm very sad about this one, but I am not going to continue those books. Those books are long, and there's a lot in that series. There's 7 or something, or 8, and it's still writing, I think. No, I'm not putting up with those characters. A series that makes me sad that I'm going to stop, but at the same time angry, is the Xanth series by Peirs. I have the next 3 books that I was supposed to read. I have Well-Tempered Clavicle, Esrever Doom, and Luck of the Draw. I don't know what order these last 2 are in, but it's books 34 through 36 or something. I don't really know. I read all 30 whatever up to this point, and I loved it. It's what made me fall in love with fantasy in the first place. I read it in middle school, which, looking back at it now, I probably shouldn't have. It's very sexual, and that's part of what really annoyed me about this book in particular. I DNF'd this book at 50 pages or something because it pissed me off to no end. The writing is really awful, the dialogue is really awful, and the storytelling is awful. And then every other sentence there's some mention of the woman's curves and how it doesn't appeal to a skeleton because of all the flesh, and I'm like, that's so unnecessary and so stupid. And I got very mad at it. I definitely was very angry in my wrap-up when I talked about it. But because of that, I'm definitely not going to continue the series. There's also the problem that it's gotten so far into the series at this point that it is recycling plot lines quite a lot. Like, almost every book has them starting off going to the good magician Humphrey to answer a question and complete a quest and everything. And it's fine, but I've read it 34 times at this point, so I'm not going to be continuing. As much as this world brings me nostalgia, and as much as I love the world, it was made of puns and magic, and I was so attached to it as a kid, but I can't do it anymore. Another popular fantasy that got adapted into a TV show that I'm not going to continue is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. I hated this book. It's often compared to Harry Potter, which I guess because they're going to a magical school, but all of the characters are awful and disgusting people, and the fact that all of the characters are awful people made me really not want to read them and read about them and follow their journey, because I didn't care for them at all because I hated them. But also the plot was really, really slow and really boring. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way about this series. A lot of people really don't get along with the characters, and I can definitely see why. It's like an adult version of Harry Potter if you can deal with obnoxious, terrible people, and I can't. The main reason I read is for characters and to connect to characters, and the fact that these characters sucked makes me really not want to read it, so I will not be continuing this series. Another adult fantasy that I don't plan to continue is the Night Angel series by Brent. This first book was about a street urchin that was learning to become an assassin under the most skilled assassin that I think exists in that world. So the plot was promising, but I just didn't really get along with the storytelling, I think. I couldn't really get into it very well. I found I was skimming, and I never skim my books. There was a lot of description that just like completely went over my head because either I wasn't paying attention or it wasn't described very well. I couldn't really picture what was happening, and that kind of took me out of the story. But at the same time, the way that the female characters in the series are portrayed is really annoying. I think that it objectifies women a lot. You get a lot of description about their sexuality, basically. I just thought it was really gross, and I didn't really connect with the characters very well, and I didn't care too much about the plot, so I don't have any plans to continue this series. I still want to try the Lightbringer series by Brent, though I have heard that he still has a problem with like misogynistic descriptions of the women, so we'll see. One series that I am DNFing, not because I hated it, but because I just don't really have much interest in it at the moment, is the Avalon series by Marion Zimmer Bradley. It took me ages to get through this, and I did enjoy it. I thought it was a really interesting take on King Arthur and the legend of King Arthur through the eyes of the women, but it's just so dense and so long. This book is literally massive that I don't see myself picking up another one at any point in the future. Maybe if I get super into Arthurian legend again, I might continue in the series. I think there's quite a few more of these, actually. Some of them are prequels and some of them are sequels, I think. I don't know, but I don't plan to continue this series just because I don't really feel a need to. And the last series that I am not going to continue is the Gemma Doyle series. The first book is A Great and Terrible Beauty, and I read this book twice. I read it once when I was much younger, and I remember the end really scared me because I was reading it at night. I can like picture exactly, I was reading it in my bed at night around Christmas because I had my cousin over, and I remember being freaked out at the end and like going to my cousin and talking to her about it. But I tried it again recently because I know a lot of people liked this book and I didn't really remember liking it very well, so I wanted to see if I just like missed something, and I didn't really. It's about a girl who's going to a boarding school, and then there's some like weird magical time things happening. I don't even remember because nothing really happened. It's very slow moving. There's something about a cult, which in theory it sounds interesting. It's like in this like Victorian boarding school. It was just very slow paced and I wasn't really drawn into it. So I don't plan to continue the series, though I do want to try her Diviner series, which has come out more recently. Though that's supposed to be like spooky as well, and I don't do well with scary things, so we'll see how that goes. So those are all of the series that I am DNFing after the first book. If you agree with me, or if you want to try and convince me to continue with some of these series, please feel free to let me know. I don't know how successful you'll be, but you can try. Let me know if there's any series that you feel this way about, that you read the first book and you just don't want to continue the rest of it. I would love to know what your negative opinions are. So I will see you later. Bye.